welcome back to the Stadium Journey podcast. We are proud to be part of the HIAC Talk Radio Network and VOC Nation. Stadium Journey is the industry leader in stadium reviews for the sports fan, with full stadium reviews of over 2,600 sporting venues in 61 countries. Check out all of our great reviews on our website, stadiumjourney.com. Also, check out our social media channels. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Stadium Journey. We're on Twitter at Stadium Journey, and we're on Instagram at Stadium Journey. And for those of you looking for our back catalog of old podcasts and all the HIAC Talk Radio podcasts, they're in transition right now. But lucky for you, you can still find all of our great content over at thebradyhicks.com. And follow HIAC Talk Radio on Twitter at HIAC Talk Radio. Makes perfect sense. And at VOC Nation. Now, let me take a minute and introduce the team. I am Paul Baker. You can follow my Stadium Journeys on Twitter at PuckmanRI. With me, as always, is Dave Cotney. Dave, where can our listeners follow your journeys online?
They can follow me rocking my Syracuse orange hat at ProFan9 on Twitter and Instagram.
And I think with us, as always, once again, is Mark Viquez. Mark, where can our listeners follow your journeys online? Well, if Mark was here to talk to you, he would say to follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Ballpark Hunter. And last but certainly not least, also incommunicado right now is our producer, who is coming to us today from Boogertown, North Carolina. Yes, that's a real place. Is the above-average comedian Dan Calachico. And those of you who desire can follow Dan on Twitter at DanLaw83. For those of you who want to watch the podcast instead of just listen to it, go to YouTube and search Stadium Journey Podcast, or follow Dan Law 83. You could find all the HIAC podcasts there. And Dan is shooting himself, so I screwed something up. We'll fix that in post. Joining us tonight, and we apologize. And you know what? We're going to blame him for all the technical difficulties we're having. Joining us tonight is Stadium Journey special correspondent. No pressure there, Jay. Special correspondent Jay Wagner. Jay, why don't you give a shout out to your where our listeners can follow you online?
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at JSWag82 and on Instagram at JBrid82, which is a reference to a hybrid. My friend would call me that in elementary school. When the hybrid cars were a big thing, he called me J-Brid, so J-Brid82.
And listeners, Jay hustled back home from the hospital to be with us, so we got to admire that dedication. Jay, I'm just kidding about this being all your fault. We're not going to blame you for any of this.
Oh, thank you.
So our topic tonight is going to be the Atlantic Coast Conference, and specifically football in the ACC. We'll get into that in a little bit, but before we jump into our topics, let us all review really quickly some of the places we've been to since our last show. And Jay, you can get in on this too if you want. I'm going to be real quick. I'm going to go first. I never go first, but today I am, because the last 2 weeks I went to one game. Imagine that. I went to LaLasher Park in Lowell, the home of the Lowell Spinners. We've talked about it a million times in this show, so I'm done. Dave, where have you been since we got together last?
Well, right now I'm trying to steady myself as I feel the earth has fallen off of its axis because Paul's only gone one spot. So that's just totally not normal.
Well, I was so sick last weekend that Saturday, Pam told me, we're not going anywhere. And then Sunday, I said, oh, I'm not going anywhere. So it was that kind of weekend.
Hey, Dave, do you have something to say about Taylor Ham now?
Now the earth is definitely off of its axis.
Right, no, I just wanted to make sure it was working. Keep going.
The voice of God.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's me.
Voice of Ham.
I'm gonna get you.
Okay. Woo. So, Paul, I think you do need to clarify your tweet there, because you did say that you weren't going anywhere this past weekend, and it was a good run. Or what was it? The wife said you couldn't go anywhere, and it was a good run. So I never got clarification. Is that like it was a good run with baseball? It was a good run with sports?
No, the marriage was a good run. I mean, she grounded me.
Oh man.
Actually, no, that was all in jest 100%. It is actually our 9th anniversary this week, so
Okay.
the run continues as long as she'll have me.
Okay. Anyway, so last week I was at the Toronto Blue Jays on August 8th. Not much to say there except they got clobbered because they're playing the Yankees and they're terrible. I think the Blue Jays are the only team in Major League Baseball without a single Major League pitcher on the roster. So anyway, Friday the 9th.
The Phillies are the other one.
Now the Phillies have got a Major League pitcher, at least one. They must have at least
One
one.
pitcher.
No, look. They're all on the Mets.
Yeah, exactly.
So on the August 9th, my wife came to me. She said, "Hey, I got access to these tickets. Do you want to go?" I was like, "Whatever." So we ended up going to the Guelph Nighthawks. So they are in the Canadian Elite Basketball League, and
Guelph. I like
league,
saying Guelph.
this league wants money from my wife's company. So so we got courtside seats for their final home game of the year. Now this league is, basketball in the summer is a little bit different, right? It's not something we're used to. But this league is focused on showcasing Canadian talent. I think it is 80% of each team's roster has to be Canadian. So it's a little bit different. It's not just like another, lower level G League or anything like that. And we got the royal treatment, got to meet the president of the team, got to meet the commissioner of the league, Mike Morial. When people want money from you, man, they come down and they make sure everything's great. They came down a couple times. But no, you know what? It was something I would have never done without kind of that push, and it was decent. We had a good time. A really different sensation being right down at courtside, though. My neck hurt because I was looking up the whole time. I'm not used to looking up. I'm used to looking down. So that was a little bit different. Following that, I hit Comerica Park, home of the Detroit Tigers. Another game where the Tigers got killed. But, man, I love that park. I got talking to a guy beside me. And I said, there is no park anywhere, there's no stadium anywhere that just embraces its identity more than Comerica Park. You cannot walk it. Like, Stevie Wonder could walk into that place and know who plays there just because, well, maybe not Stevie Wonder, but all of the Tiger statues there, they really embrace the whole thing. It's probably it's probably due for like a little power wash, a little paint job, but other than that, it's a great place. After that, we hit our vacation for the summer, just a little short one. We hit Chicago, where the White Sox were washed out, and funny thing. We had bought our tickets for the White Sox on StubHub, and had we not bought them on StubHub, we would have been out money. But because we bought them on StubHub, we got our money fully refunded, which was pretty cool. We just couldn't make another game work. After that, it was to Miller Park, home of the Milwaukee Brewers. And we were in the upper deck. I hadn't sat up there before, but man, that place is just huge. I know you guys don't care for the indoor stadiums, but wow, I really felt that place was massive. But give the Brewers credit, 41,000 on a Tuesday night. It was packed. It was great. The roof was open. It was a good day.
Dave, did you get the same feeling about the roof that I did? That it was.
I could hear your voice in the back of my head, and I actively tried to ignore that.
Tried to squash it down with some Miller beer.
But I did head up and we got a picture with Bob Uecker in the Uecker seats. That guy is kind of creepy up there.
It is.
It's a little creepy, fully colored and whatnot. So, and then my last spot, we hit Jackson Field at Cooley Law School Stadium in Lansing, Michigan, home of the Lansing Lugnuts, and they are in the Midwest League Single A affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. And stadium's fine. There's nothing really special about it. there's some apartments in center field that are just kind of, I guess they've just opened, and they're kind of colorful, and that's neat. But I figured, Paul, this is your retirement spot.
Oh, absolutely. And I had been to Lansing. It was a few years back, and they were just starting construction, so it was nice to see what they look like all completed. Yeah, that's my dream retirement spot, a place like that, overlooking a ballpark,
Now,
or within a short walk.
Now here's a question for you. If you had those center field apartments, would you sit on the balcony and watch the game, or would you get season tickets and walk down and around and go to the ballpark?
Oh, I'd have the best balcony there was. No, I would sit on my balcony and drink beer and cook up stuff. And yeah, it'd be a blast. I wouldn't. I'm sure the rent is pretty steep at those places, so why would I want to buy tickets on top of it?
Yeah.
I'm paying to be right in the ballpark.
What did I say it was? I sent you the prices. I think it was $1,200 a month for a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
So I don't know if that's good or bad, or I haven't.
Not bad. I thought it would be more.
It's not terrible. I mean, but for Lansing,
But it's Lansing,
I don't
too.
know what the
I don't
average
know.
price. I don't know what the average is. For Indy, that'd be cheap.
For New England, that would be an absolute steal.
I don't know, Paul. I don't think they would allow you to put 700 pounds of hockey pucks on the balcony there.
I'd have to reinforce it.
But that's it for me.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, glad you were able to find us and join us.
Oh,
Where were your trips this
I
past?
tell you, I had a better time getting to Nashville than getting on here. Well, I went to.
Oh, by the way, you weren't here for this part. We're blaming Jay.
Okay. I'm just blaming that stupid computer upstairs, and I don't have my microphone in front of me, which is going to throw me off. I feel naked without it. Well, I went to Chicago White Sox, guaranteed rate field. Very underrated facility, and unlike Mr. Dave Contney, it was a nice night, and they played. One thing I did was I parked at the Buffalo Wings and Rings, which is a little over a mile, if that, away from the ballpark, and they shuttle you to the game for free. You can save yourself $20. You can also park at Rico Beans, which is this awesome Italian restaurant that has Italian beef sandwiches. They serve slices of Chicago-style pizza. They have a much larger parking lot. They'll shuttle you to the game for free. Just tip your driver. But once inside the ballpark, the place was packed. They had about 43,000 people. Saturday night at a White Sox game is an outdoor party in the outfield. We're able to walk around. Nobody bothered you to walk down to the lower level. And for $20 for a ticket, you had yourself a good time. So don't believe the hype. People were walking around after the game outside, and it was enjoy for all. I also checked out First Tennessee Park in Nashville. That's home of the Nashville Sounds.
Wait, before you get into Nashville, one question.
Yes.
You're in Chicago. You're visiting Chicago. What would you rather have, an Italian beef sandwich or a slice of Chicago deep dish pizza?
Italian beef.
I'm going with the Italian beef myself.
Italian beef.
Yeah, Italian beef is
How about you,
one
Jay?
heck of a sandwich.
I'll take the pizza.
I'm right here, guys.
Hey, Dan, what about you?
No, I'm the
Italian
Italian beef. I'm right here.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Me slapper.
Italian beef. Well, okay, beat in Nashville. What would you rather have? Some, Southern barbecue or some hot chicken?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Barbecue.
I go with the barbecue.
Barbecue.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, barbecue.
I'll say
but
hot chicken. Hot chicken's just sort of a Nashville thing, I feel like.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, it is. They do it quite well there, and you can also get it at the ballpark too. But you can get hot or not chicken. So depending on your heat level, you can try it there. One thing I do like about First Tennessee Park is the neighborhood. They built that to rejuvenate the surrounding Georgetown neighborhood, and people are moving in. They're building apartments, not in the outfield, but behind home plate. And they have this awesome place to eat right across the steps from the ballpark. And I'm going to say this name wrong. Elron's. It used to be like a German hall, but now it's serving barbecue. They have beers. They serve the beer in steins. They have an outdoor beer garden. It is the place to be before a game.
I have a
Once
question.
Yes.
Is hot chicken not barbecued already?
No, it's not barbecued. It's
It's fried chicken.
Yeah, it's fried
there's-
chicken that
okay.
they dip in cayenne and oil to make it hot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's
outstanding.
that's kind of like the new regional craze that's kind of sweeping the nation. Like hot chicken's been around in Nashville for many years, and now Kentucky Fried Chicken sells, and now you can buy it in certain restaurants across the country. But
Got it.
there's Hattie B's and Prince's are a few of the originals that served it down there.
I'm going to get off
but
topic
getting
for a
back-
second. Have you guys
Yeah,
seen
go.
the Twitter beef going on between Popeyes and Chick-fil-A? And
I've heard about it.
Oh, yes.
it's hilarious. Hilarious. They're all arguing over who's got the best chicken sandwiches.
Oh,
And
So
so
that's-
everybody who's ever made a chicken sandwich is jumping in. And like I think Wendy's jumped in and everybody kind of said, get out of here.
Wendy's is not the fast food chain you want to get on the bad side with in terms of
No.
social
Yeah.
media. I mean,
They've got an
they've
outstanding-
had some
There's
pretty good roasts over the years.
There's two restaurant social medias I would never F with. Wendy's and what's that seafood place?
Long John's,
Long John
No.
Silver's.
Captain D's.
No, it's Seafood Shack somewhere in the South that went after PETA and have been just burning people ever since. Because PETA went after them and they just replied to PETA and it was all over. PETA just kind of ghosted the whole thing. Like, I'm out. See you later.
Yeah, if you want some entertainment though, check out like hashtag is it chicken sandwich or something like that. It's been hilarious to follow.
Yeah. Okay, well, getting back, it's called the place across from First Tennessee Park is called Von Elron's Beer Hall. Awesome place to go. If you can make it to a game early, check it out and grab some beer. It's a little bit cheaper. But once you get inside First Tennessee, you get the Bandbox, which is this outdoor adult young people entertainment area, outdoor bar. They have putt-putt. They have shuffleboard, cornhole. It is such a cool environment. I call it the soul of First Tennessee Ballpark, or it's been called that. I don't think I'm the person who coined that phrase. I think Joe Mock probably did, but I think everybody was thinking that. It's such a hip place to go to. For $9, people buy tickets and just hang out there and eat and drink. Single guys go there to pick up girls. Young kids play with their parents. You forget you're at a baseball game. It's probably one of the best social areas I've seen at a ballpark. And a lot of these types of places are opening up. Fayetteville and Birmingham all have their varieties, but Nashville does it right. On my way back, I was able to check out a little bit of the Louisville Slugger game. Louisville Slugger Field, home to the Louisville Bats. That's a stadium that has seen some better days. I think just like Detroit, it can use a power wash. I know they're getting $8 million to improve the stadium the next few years, and I hope that goes accordingly well because it's a great neighborhood, great views. They also have an awesome barbecue place called Against the Grain that has microbrew beer. And I at one time it was one of my favorite ballparks, but it's kind of falling into disrepair in looks, not, just the looks. They need to add a social area. They need to spruce up the place here and there, and people will come back. So 3 ballparks, 2 weeks. That's my travels. How about you?
How about you, Jay? You want to jump in on this? You been anywhere in the past couple
Yeah,
weeks?
so since I've been on the show last, it's about a year ago, so I've been a lot of places. As far as recently, I was in Altoona / Granville last weekend. I went to the Altoona Curve on Saturday night at People's Natural Gas Field. That is an awesome ballpark. Let me tell you, it's just beautiful place. Got a big league feel to it. It feels just perfect in that kind of recessed bowl that it sits in. The roller coaster in right field. I love that place so much. And then I went to the West Virginia Black Bears game on Sunday at Monongalia County Ballpark. By the way, does anyone know how that's pronounced? If it's Monongalia,
Monongahela, I thought.
Well, no, I think Monongahela, but it's spelled differently.
Oh, okay.
It's named after the
Mistake.
county it's in, and the county was a misspelling of the river hundreds of years ago.
and they went with it.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because whenever I say, yeah, I went to Monongalia County Ballpark, people go, you mean Monongahela?
Oh,
I'm
God.
like, no, that's actually what it's
Ah.
called.
Or Kansas City.
But anyway, Great
So,
ballpark.
See,
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
learn something listening to the Stadium Journey podcast.
Yeah, but anyway, that was a beautiful place. Mon County Ballpark. We'll call it that because that's what they call it for short. They share it with West Virginia. It's in Granville, which is right across the river from Morgantown, and it's opened in 2015, I believe. And just a great place, super new. The New York Penn League. The New York Penn League, I mean, for being such a low level, they just consistently have great ballparks. I love that league so much, and had a great time at both of those places last weekend.
And coming soon to the New York Penn League, McCoy Stadium.
Is
Really?
that fact or?
It's a 50-50 shot right now, either Atlantic League or New York Penn League.
Oh wow.
We'll see.
Who are they
They said they're going to announce it in October.
Oh wow.
So stay tuned.
Who's going to move?
Batavia?
Batavia is the rumor.
Really?
God,
But
poor
Batavia's been
Batavia.
rumored to move for the past 10 years. So
I know. Well, see, that's what I like about the New York League. You got these small little towns, and they have eclectic, funky-looking ballparks. Some really old, some modern. And going to McCoy, I would not oppose that, just because I'd hate to see baseball leave McCoy. But that's going to be a big, big stadium for the New York Penn League.
too big.
I was about to
Too
say,
big.
yeah.
Scale
All
it down,
right.
hopefully.
So stay tuned. We'll see what happens. We're all waiting with bated breath to see what happens up here. So, all right, let's jump into our topic. The Atlantic Coast Conference, traditionally thought of as a basketball conference, but as Dave put it in our agenda, sneaky good at football. And traditionally, the conference stretched from Maryland in the north down to Florida State, I believe, was the southernmost team. But they've expanded into several Northeast cities, in Syracuse, in Pittsburgh, and in Boston College, and Louisville, I think, were the 4 places they went to. So maybe my first question would be, did that kind of ruin this regional conference that had very long-standing rivalries and was very centrally located? Has the expansion kind of ruined the product a little bit or watered it down?
That's an interesting one because you don't often hear about it from an ACC perspective. You hear about it from a Big East perspective, about how Syracuse and mainly Syracuse leaving the Big East killed the Big East, right?
Well, those were all Big East schools. I mean, Syracuse and Miami, too. I forgot Miami. Boston College and Louisville and Pitt were all at one time or another Big East schools.
But I think, you have created or maybe not created, but embellished a rivalry with Miami and Florida State now in the same conference. And, the core is still there. The core hasn't changed too much. So with the conferences getting bigger and, trying to get more power, I don't know. I don't think it's really hurt, but you also combine that timing with, in football specifically, Florida State winning a couple of national championships, or at least one. Clemson suddenly not being Clemson and winning. They won a couple national championships. So, I think the conference is in pretty decent shape.
Jay, we're going to lean on you because you are located physically right in the middle of ACC country. So we're going to lean on you a lot for some insider perspective here.
Yeah, so I think with the expansion, look, the ACC expanded to 2 divisions when I guess it was 5, something like that, when Virginia Tech and Miami and that slew of teams, Boston College came in. The 2, the Atlantic and the Coastal, so they're not really geographically separated properly. So you have North Carolina split, for instance. You have North Carolina and Duke both in the Coastal, and then you have NC State and Wake Forest both in the Atlantic. So, as a matter of fact, in a couple weeks, Wake Forest is playing North Carolina in a non-conference game. Week 3, they just wanted to make it happen really bad. They can't play each other every year because they're not their crossover opponents. They're playing each other. They scheduled a non-conference game against each other. And so it definitely has broken up the 2 divisions just because they can't make it north and south without splitting up North Carolina, unfortunately. I've done it in my head many times how they could do it more geographically, but they just can't. And the reason they did it this way is because they thought Miami and Florida State would play each other every year in the championship, and it's never happened, as a matter of fact. But it really is a sneaky good football conference, and I always say my cousin's a big Ole Miss fan, so he's a big SEC fan, and he always tells me of the SEC it just means more, because that's their rallying cry. I always say the ACC it just wins more. I mean, 2 of the last 3 championships, conference record. It really is. It bothers me the ACC doesn't get the respect I feel it deserves.
Yeah, it's funny. I would say that the popular opinion would be that the top football conference is, of course, the SEC, and then the second best conference, I think most people would say, is the Big Ten, just because of the tradition and how old they are. But I find it, and I do enjoy sports talk radio a lot. However, I really can't stand Paul Feinbaum. And Paul Feinbaum has been like the flag bearer of this whole, the SEC is the greatest conference ever, and it's the greatest football conference ever. But funny enough, Clemson has really, done a number on that idea, to me anyway.
Yeah, I think last year was sort of like the SEC is this big bad conference, and at the end of the year when Clemson just, tore apart Alabama, it was sort of like, oh, maybe the ACC wasn't as bad as we thought it was.
I guess maybe that argument goes with, if you get away from the top teams, because the ACC, I think, you look at some of the schools, they've always had the top level, one or 2 teams that can compete. But how about the middle of the conference? You think about some places like, Duke, Wake Forest, for example, are not considered, powerhouses or strong football team or programs. So
a lot of it's reputation, because Duke and Wake Forest, they both make bowl games yearly now. Really all it is reputation. It's the same way with the AP poll when it comes out, start of the year. It's just reputation. Virginia Tech received votes for the AP poll today, and they won 6 games last year, and everyone transferred. So it's just reputation, honestly. It's a lot of it.
That's the thing that I hate the most about college football is the idea of pedigree, and that what you've done in the past somehow has an effect on what you're going to do in the future. And that Alabama is going to get preferential treatment because they have been successful for so many years and they have this pedigree, whereas another school that might be kind of coming up out of nowhere will not get that same sort of consideration. It really angers me. It's not an equal playing field, before the ball's even snapped.
Yeah, I do hear the argument of, the ACC, Clemson's at the very top, and they've always been top heavy, but not been deep. I do understand that argument somewhat, but at the same time, who really challenged Alabama in any game last year in the SEC?
Right.
Excellent point.
And that argument of our conference is better is like, what are you comparing? Are you comparing like the bottom end of your conference to the bottom end of another conference? Like, who cares? At the end of the day, it's who wins the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Clemson won. You got to say that the ACC is the best conference right now.
I wouldn't agree with that point at all.
Why not?
Just because you had the best team didn't mean you have the best conference. Those are 2 separate things.
Nah. Then how would you metric what the best conference is?
Yeah, I don't know if you could. Unless you went head to head across all the teams or something like that. I don't know.
There's one school that can say that they won, and that's it.
Yeah, but
they're in that conference.
Yeah, I won't argue with that because I don't agree with your whole logic.
There's no way to prove it. That's what makes it such a great debate.
That's why we have podcasts like this, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I find interesting about the ACC is that, to me, there's no doormat. Like for years and years and years, Duke and Wake Forest were the doormats, right? But now they're competitive teams. You know, Syracuse was a doormat for a long time, and they're kind of getting a resurgence. So there's a not quite a parity, I guess Virginia maybe.
There we go.
It's maybe not parity, but there is a bit of a cycle there, and you know it would be a good conference to be a fan of, because if this is a trend, you can be confident that your team is not going to be at the bottom forever.
All right, you were speaking about the bottom of the conference, so I'm going to get into that for a second. But Jay, did you go to Virginia?
No, I did not. Although I
just
do
from the
get
area?
asked every single day. Yeah, I get asked every day if I play football at UVA, especially when I wear this shirt. In fact,
Okay,
the Final Four,
there you go.
the Final Four,
So,
Ty Jones' dad came up to me and said, "Hey, what position do you play?" I don't.
So up here, you know, from the New England perspective, Boston College has struggled in pretty much every sport since they joined the ACC. And it's been a real point of contention up here that joining the ACC may have been a mistake because they've really been overmatched in a lot of things. The football team is showing some signs of life, so they should have a competitive team this year. But I guess from and we'll get into facilities in a minute, but from a facilities standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, the argument up here has been, from a fundraising standpoint, the argument has been that they are a step or two behind some of the other schools in the conference. And a lot of the longtime boosters are saying it was a big mistake. How are some of the newcomers seen across the conference?
Yeah, I think there's certainly I'm trying to think of the right word to use. A lot of old school ACC fans are not happy about expansion, and they see teams like Louisville or Pitt or Syracuse or Boston College or even like Miami as kind of these outsider schools that aren't really true ACC teams. I mean, facilities are really good. I've been to both ACC schools in Virginia and then all 4 in North Carolina as well as Louisville. So I've been to 7. The facilities are pretty consistently good. You certainly have, even if the stadium let's take North Carolina, for example. Their stadium is not beautiful, Keenan Stadium, in terms of like the architecture, but you walk through a North Carolina pine forest to get there. It's really a neat setup. Duke's got a very underrated stadium, so I think a lot of these ACC teams definitely do have sneaky good venues, just like sneaky good teams. And I've not been to Boston College, so I can't say firsthand. I can't compare Boston College to the rest of the ACC, but
Nobody would ever call Alumni Stadium sneaky good. I can talk about that in a minute.
okay.
Well, but Paul, you were talking about recruiting and getting in better players and whatnot, and I don't, you know, I'm not going to disagree with you about the facilities at North Carolina or Duke, you know, from a fan's perspective. But I think where you're talking about, Paul, and where like Boston College would be behind is facilities from an athlete perspective. You know, does Boston College have the, you know, Boston family whatever football player cafeteria, which is like the greatest thing ever, or, you know, all of those kind of, you go down to like an SEC school and you go like, what the heck? They have, you know, the football team has their own this, you know, they all seem to have field houses now, and they all seem to have, you know, practice facilities, and, you know, outside of, you know, Alumni Stadium or Wallace Wade Stadium or wherever, you know, that's just that place you show up, you know, 4 times a year, 5 times a year, 6 times a year, whatever.
I think where it was more striking, and we're going to get off topic for a second with this conversation, is baseball is really a sport where it was really striking for Boston College. Now, the SEC has some of the finest baseball programs, some of the finest facilities in the country. Boston College, their home stadium for the longest time was Commander Shea Field, which was located literally beside the parking garage for Alumni Stadium. So there were maybe 2 rows of aluminum bleachers around this place behind home plate, but most people would come to Commander Shea Field and stand on the parking ramps that went up the side of the parking garage. and that's where you would watch the game. So they put in just 2 years ago. They built a brand new complex for the baseball, softball, and I think it was a big intramural complex, the Brighton Fields, which is across the street from the main campus. $45 million complex, I think, to be able to compete in baseball. But Dave, your point was an excellent one for the other stuff, the cafeterias, the dorms, the field houses, the practice places. Boston College doesn't have any of that.
Mm-hmm. And Boston College is probably, in a little bit of a unique situation. I'm not sure that they have access to, Pitt would probably be in the same spot. I'm not sure they have access to space to build that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, Boston is not an urban campus. It's not downtown Boston, but it's got a very small footprint in Chestnut Hill. Dave, you'll actually see this in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
So there's really nowhere for them to expand. So yeah, so all these, and it's a very old campus with old Gothic architecture. Your traditional college. It's a beautiful campus, but not really any room to build new stuff for the sports teams. And sports has never been the number one priority at BC.
Well, and if you look at Pitt, right? They don't have any space to build anything extra. They don't even have a field, right? They play at Heinz Field, which is the same place that the Steelers play. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but Pitt is a very urban campus. And if you've ever been to like the Peterson Event Center where they play basketball, like it is just, I'm not sure they could fit anything else in there. It is so landlocked.
You have to go about 10 flights of escalator stairs to get to the playing surface.
Yeah.
They just started stacking things on top of each other because that's how little room they had.
Yeah.
Great place, by the way. Love the Oakland Zoo.
So, Jay, you said you've been to a great deal of the Atlantic Coast. You've been to 7 of the, how many teams are in it? 14?
Yeah, 14.
All right. You know what? We were talking.
Sports, but yeah.
Yeah, we were talking before, and I was like, yeah, I've been to Maryland. I forgot Maryland left a bunch of years ago to go to the Big Ten. So
yeah, it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah. So you've been to half of them. What are some of your highlights, some of your favorite places?
So I'm a bit biased, but Scott Stadium is my hands down favorite. Of course, I've been going there every Saturday since I was a little kid. So like I said, I'm biased, but just legitimately stadium. The beautiful Virginia October days here in Charlottesville. Walking Blue Ridge Mountains in the background, the Jefferson architecture, the columns and such around the stadium. It really is just, there could not be a more beautiful setting for football, in my opinion.
All right. Mark, how many of the ACC places have you been to?
One.
One? Which would be?
Yeah, Louisville. Well, at first it was Papa John's Cardinal Stadium. Now I think it's just Cardinal Stadium. I was there last year for my second time. They're making improvements to the facility. It's a nice place. It sits on campus. It's close to the other venues they have there. Saw Teddy Bridgewater play there a few years ago with the place packed. Not so much this time around, but you can get affordable tickets, and it's Louisville's just a cool place to be to begin with. So at a college football game, and you got yourself a nice little weekend.
I remember that place as being really. I saw it from the outside, just mammoth, just huge, just
it's like tall. It's very tall. It's like it was built on the ground and up.
It's right near Churchill Downs. That's where I remember driving by it, and I had the same impression, Dave. That's just
you can see it. Oh yeah, there it is. But yeah, it's it's nice being a little bit close to the ACC venues. Kind of like Kentucky being close to the SEC venues. So,
Dave, how about you? Where have you been through the ACC?
I got 2.5. 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5. I got Pitt.
2.5.
At Heinz Field, that was all right. Nothing spectacular. And when they built it, they did a decent enough job remembering that it's not just the home of the Steelers. Also, we were talking. Sneaky Good seems to be like the name of this episode. Sneaky Good was the experience I had at Syracuse. Although it is indoors, And funny enough, in the Carrier Dome, which has no air
No
conditioning.
AC.
But yeah, it was. I'd been there for basketball, and that was like a really huge deal. But football was a lot better than I expected. And then, of course, my half would be that I've been in Notre Dame. And although they're not technically in the ACC for football, they do have a sort of competition agreement where they play a bunch of ACC schools to kind of round out their schedule. And Notre Dame, I mean, it's legendary, touchdown Jesus, the whole thing, but probably the most uncomfortable stadium I've ever been at. Like, I think I've said this before. I think Newt Rockne, literally put in the wooden benches that everybody sits on, way back when everything was in black and white. Like, it was totally uncomfortable. And I've not had a comfort level that low in any other college facility. So,
well, I'll be there in about 5 weeks, so can't wait.
Yeah.
So I went to Notre Dame for hockey. Do I get a quarter?
Well, I'm 1.5 too. I've been to Notre Dame to see a game, so 1.5. Good, just improved.
There you go. Dave, follow-up question. Pitt, how do they draw for football at Heinz Field?
They're probably, the Steelers sell out every game, of course.
Right.
So Pitt is probably about 2/3 to 3/4 full. So it's not terrible. There's a lot of.
It's pretty good. About what, 40 grand or so?
Yeah, something like that.
And I think you're absolutely right. When they built that stadium, they really did incorporate a lot of Pitt stuff in there. Like, it's located on Tony Dorsett Drive.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been to Heinz Stadium, they've got the Steelers Hall of Fame under there. But there's also elements of the Pitt Panthers as well.
Yeah, and they have these big wrought iron fence with wrought iron gates all around, and on one gate it'll say Steelers, and then on the other gate it'll say Panthers. And when they paint the end zone, one side says Pittsburgh and the other side says nothing. So it doesn't say, you could watch on television and not really know which team is playing. So, but I would guess that Pitt is kind of like a Miami, in that they're not blowing the doors off the stadium all the time. But if they're really good, then they'll really draw, but they're pretty up and down. And Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino, LaShawn McCoy, and then have there been other players who've played for Pitt? Probably, but those are the ones that you always think of, right?
Right.
Hey, here's a good trivia question: how many national championships has Pitt won in football?
I think it's probably 4 or 5 or something like that in the 30s.
10.
Or something. 10.
They've won. Yes, they've
Wow.
won 10 national championships in football. I'm not making that up.
And when
Wow.
was the
Crazy?
last one?
78, 77, 76. 76,
Did they win
right?
one with Marino?
No, I
Marino
think Tony
was
Dorsett.
Dorsett?
70,
80s.
well,
Marino was
76.
drafted in 83.
I want to say 76, 77.
Well, Marino's rookie year in the NFL was 83, right?
83, so.
He was in that draft.
Right after, yeah. Huh, that's interesting. 10. You don't think of Pitt when you think of the traditional.
No.
Football.
Well, even
Like last week we
like Princeton and Yale, they
Right.
have a lot of championships, but
Exactly.
they stopped after 1925.
Right.
Yeah.
1898 national champs.
So
Looks
all
like
right. So
1976 was
Yeah,
their
there you
last
go.
one.
okay. So here's a good question. So the ACC has a lot of teams with a lot of history, and even recently, a bunch of national championships. But if you were to ask your regular sports fan about the ACC, what do they think of right away? Basketball.
Of course.
What would it take for this sneaky good conference to develop a bigger football reputation?
I would
think
say it would take people to start looking at the facts. Honestly, to look at the records, look at the teams that are in it, and worry about more than just reputation or who's the traditional power, in the last 10, 20 years. If you really look at the football that's being played, it's top notch, I believe.
Mark,
Well,
did you have something?
Oh, I would just say you look at Miami University in the late 70s, early 80s, no one was going to those games. All of a sudden, you started winning. You started getting some of your players drafted in the NFL. You started having an identity and an attitude. And I guess you'd have to do that with certain teams in the ACC. Look at Louisville with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, people were flocking to see the Cardinals play. Just need the star power.
I think you also, and maybe this is a bit of a segue, I think you also need to have your members clean. Like, if, Mark, you were talking about Louisville. My God, is there a school that has gone through more
Basketball
controversy in the last decade than Louisville? Right?
Cost him Romeo Langford College. Yeah. He would have went there.
You've had significant controversies in North Carolina, in Miami, Louisville. Right? This seems to be a conference that's got a lot of bad boys to it as well. And to me, they really, as a conference, they really need to pull together and polish the image. And yeah.
Is that the price that's got to be paid to make it to the next time, the big boy in with the big boys?
What they're doing and what they're getting killed for?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is Bobby Petrino riding a motorcycle with a cheerleader going to help them win football games? Some of the stuff, maybe like academic issues, recruiting issues and whatnot. But I mean, Louisville is just a mess. Miami, I don't know. I guess a lot of Miami's problems were when they were independent, but the U still carries a lot of that dirt, that
outlaw image.
Yeah.
Miami comes to Charlottesville, most of their fans look like what Saturday Night Live people would try and look like if they were trying to be a Miami fan, like for some over-the-top skit. I mean, they always dress up in the most ridiculous, outfits and stuff, but they're passionate. But it's interesting. I think Miami, the fact that they have been so inconsistent the last, maybe even mediocre at times, the last 10, 15 years. Of course, 2 years ago, they were almost in the championship. They hadn't lost at Pitt, but I think that's the reputation is Miami and Florida State. Those are two of the ACC's big names, and they're down right now.
Yeah.
So the ACC must be down as a result. So teams like Duke or Wake Forest or UVA even are getting overlooked just because people think, the ACC is down.
And I don't think we can underestimate the power of something like Jimbo Fisher leaving Florida State to go to Texas A&M. Like he's leaving a program which he brought a national championship to go to the SEC. And that can't help the ACC at all.
That was mainly about facilities, by the way. Florida State just didn't want to give him the resources to improve facilities to what he thought was a respectable level. Texas A&M, I should say, has a boatload of money. And they were basically, before he even signed on with them, they were already saying, we'll give you this amount of money for, a new football center and this and that. So that's really what made the decision for him.
Geez, it all comes around again, back to what we were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah. So maybe since we've come full circle, that's a good spot to wrap it up. So of this sneaky good, that's, I think, Dave, you hit it on the head in your agenda. Sneaky good.
Sneaky good.
So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And, I would ask Dan if he had any Stadium Journeys planned, but he's not talking anymore. Oh, there he is. Dan, where can our listeners follow you online?
In Mexico, apparently.
Dan Low 83.
He's got a Nacho Libre mask on right now or something.
That's Lucha Dan.
There is nothing Lucha about me, sir.
So, Jay, I want to thank you for coming on, and you want to pimp out your social media channels and any place coming up on your travels that our listeners can follow.
Yeah, so once again, Twitter at JSWag82, Instagram JBrid82. Trying to think what I have coming up. Probably won't go to UVA at Pitt for week 1, but I don't know, maybe. We'll see if anyone wants to go with me. Not ruling it out. But by the way, real quick, while we're talking about ACC stadiums, interesting fact: since 2000, this way, the last time Virginia Tech beat a ranked team at Lane Stadium was 2009. Since then, Virginia's beaten 4 ranked teams at home. Just want to put that out there to all these people that keep saying Lane Stadium is this fortress of college football. Just wanted to put that out there.
All right.
Kelly, Jay Wagner's talking about Lane Stadium.
Oh yeah, one of our HIAC co-hosts for Obey the Puck went to Virginia Tech. Is that right? Or she's a big fan?
Yeah, she's a graduate.
She graduated from there, didn't she?
Yeah, she's got a degree there. Yeah,
So
come on.
That's Kelly. That's Kelly Levy. She's gonna make a last-second appearance.
No, she's no.
We're going to have it out. Virginia versus Virginia Tech. Mark, any stadium journeys planned for you in the coming weeks, and where can our listeners follow you online?
Well, I'm going to be in the Chicago area for 2 out of the next 3 weeks, and I'd like to go see a Chicago Red Star game. That's the female soccer league, the women's soccer league. And I'd also like to go see a WNBA game since we do not have a review of the Chicago Sky. But that'll have to come down to my wife and what we're doing with the family. So find out if I get to those games on Twitter or on Instagram at ballparkhunter.com. Or Ballpark Hunter, not Ballpark. I don't have a website yet. Don't go there. Twitter, Instagram.
And Dave, any stadium journeys planned for you, and where can our listeners follow you online?
Well, it's the last hurrah of the summer for me, and actually today is a great day because my Wilfrid Laurier Golden Hawks football season tickets showed up. So the season kicks off on the 25th. So I'm doing a doubleheader. The KW doubleheader, Laurier hosting Western in the afternoon, down to Warrior Field for the Waterloo Warriors hosting Toronto in the evening. And then Jackson and I are on the road for kind of his this is actually his birthday road trip. His birthday was in June. But Buffalo Bisons, followed by a trip to the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, which is very exciting. Then to the home of the Tim Tebow-less Syracuse Mets. So that's a little bit disappointing, but we're going to go see the Mets. Then on to Michie Stadium for some Army West Point Black Knights football as they host Rice in their first game of the year. I'm looking forward to that. And then it's up to Paul Baker Land as I hit the Boston College Eagles in Chestnut Hill, and they're hosting the Virginia Tech Kellys. And then it's up to Ottawa to see the Carleton Ravens. And on the way home, it is a stop at York to see the York Lions as they host Laurier in their second week game. And you can follow all of that on Twitter and Instagram at ProFan9.
All right. And as for myself, my wedding anniversary is this weekend. So you can guess how we're going to celebrate our anniversary.
At the ballpark.
At the ballpark.
Nice.
Yes. Brockton Rocks.
No. That's where we got married, actually, but you've heard that story before. Friday, we're heading up to Troy, New York. We're going to catch the Tri-City Valley Cats. The reason we're going to Troy is because on Saturday, we're heading to Cooperstown as well. We're going to meet up with the Ballpark Stampeders on Saturday, and we are playing softball at Abner Doubleday Field. So that's going to be a wicked fun day, as they like to say here in New England.
That is. Sounds like a wicked fun day. Wow.
There's got to be a dinosaur barbecue visit in there in Troy, New York.
Well, we are staying in Albany, so let's see. We both took Friday off of work, so we'll dinosaur on Friday, and then probably again on Sunday before we start heading home.
Sweet.
And Sunday on the way home, we're going to go a little out of the way and catch the Hudson Valley Renegades.
That's a good ballpark. Nice NYPL. Yeah, they keep it very clean.
I haven't been there in many a year. So,
actually, yeah.
And Labor Day weekend, college football season starts. So I'm going to meet up with the Cottonies up at Alumni Stadium, and I'm going to show them around a little bit. Maybe I'm going to save them a lot of money on parking anyway if I do nothing else. And that's the final weekend of the minor league baseball season. So I'll probably be at McCoy Stadium the rest of the weekend for the conclusion of the penultimate season of the Paw Sox. I just love that word. I wanted to throw that big word in there. You can follow my stadium journeys on Twitter and Instagram at PuckmanRI. Oh, yeah, and speaking of Twitter, I teased a big announcement, and my big announcement is, as of today, I am now the voice of the Boston Pride. So if you go to a Boston Pride game at Warrior Ice Arena, you will hear yours truly doing all the in-arena PA and all that good stuff, and hopefully that turns into a little bit more. So that was my big announcement.
Goalie?
The NWHL
Congrats.
lives. And also, let's see, in bigger news, this is the Stadium Journey podcast. So please check out our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Stadium Journey. Find all of our Stadium Journey podcasts, all our back catalog, as well as all of HIAC Talk Radio's other great content at thebradyhicks.com. Follow HIAC Talk Radio on Twitter at HIAC Talk Radio. And join us in 2 weeks for our next show. That will be September 3rd. It's already September. That's just nuts. When we are joined, for sure this time, Dave, right?
I'm hoping so.
All right, by Jim Mullen, the president of Football Canada. And we're going to talk a little bit about the future of football in Canada. So, Jay Wagner, thanks for joining us. And for Dan Calachico, Mark Viquez, Dave Cotney, I'm Paul Baker, wishing you all close games and safe journeys.